A river can look healthy and still be slowly suffocating. The water may continue flowing, trees may line the banks, and fish may still be visible beneath the surface. Yet hidden inside that water, the oxygen needed by almost every complex form of aquatic life may be disappearing. A new global study has found that rivers around the world have been losing dissolved oxygen for decades, and climate change appears to be the main force driving the decline. Researchers reconstructed oxygen conditions across more than 21,000 rivers from 1985 to 2022. Instead of relying only on monitoring stations, which are concentrated in a limited number of countries, they combined field measurements, satellite observations, environmental data, and machine learning models. The resulting map revealed a worldwide pattern that had previously been difficult to see. Average dissolved oxygen levels in rivers declined by about 2.1% during the study period. 2% may not sound dramatic, but oxygen is not an optional ingredient in a river. Fish use it to breathe through their gills. Insects, crustaceans, mollusks, and many microorganisms also depend on it. When concentrations fall, animals become stressed, growth slows, reproduction becomes more difficult, and sensitive species begin to disappear. If oxygen drops far enough, a living river can develop zones where most fish can no longer survive. The basic mechanism begins with temperature. Oxygen enters rivers from the atmosphere, from turbulent movement, and from photosynthesis by aquatic plants and algae. But warm water cannot retain as much dissolved gas as cold water. As rivers heat up, some of their oxygen escapes into the atmosphere. At the same time, fish and microbes generally use oxygen faster because biological and chemical reactions accelerate at higher temperatures. This creates a dangerous imbalance. The river becomes less capable of holding oxygen at exactly the moment when its inhabitants may need more of it. The study estimated that warming accounted for roughly 63% of the observed global oxygen decline. Other human activities contributed to the rest. Fertilizer and sewage can carry nitrogen, phosphorus, and organic material into rivers. These nutrients encourage algae and microorganisms to grow rapidly. When that biological material dies, bacteria consume oxygen while decomposing it. The water can therefore lose oxygen even when the surface appears green and full of life. Dams and other changes to river flow can make the problem worse. Fast-moving water normally mixes with the atmosphere, continually absorbing new oxygen. When a river is slowed, diverted, or divided into reservoirs, some sections may become warmer and more stagnant. Water withdrawn for cities, farms, and industry can reduce the volume remaining in the channel, leaving less capacity to dilute pollution or resist heating. The decline was not evenly distributed. Some rivers remained stable, while others experienced severe losses. The researchers identified important hotspots across tropical regions, parts of India, the eastern United States, the Amazon basin, and the Arctic. The Ganges was highlighted as an especially concerning case, with oxygen losses occurring far faster than the global average. Each region faces a different combination of pressures. In a densely populated river basin, untreated waste and agricultural runoff may dominate. In the Arctic, rapid warming and changes in ice, snow, and permafrost can transform river chemistry. In tropical forests, deforestation may heat streams by removing shade while also increasing erosion and organic material entering the water. These local differences matter because the same oxygen concentration does not affect every species equally. Carp and catfish can tolerate conditions that would quickly threaten trout or salmon. Cold water fish are especially vulnerable because they need cool temperatures and high oxygen at the same time. When a river warms, the suitable habitat can shrink from both directions. Surface water becomes too hot, while deeper or slower water may not contain enough oxygen. Fish can sometimes move upstream, enter cooler tributaries, or gather near springs. But dams, roads, damaged wetlands, and fragmented habitats may block those escape routes. A population can become trapped between water that is too warm and water that is too oxygen poor. The consequences extend far beyond individual fish. Rivers are biological transport systems connecting mountains, forests, farms, cities, wetlands, estuaries, and oceans. Insects that develop underwater later emerge and become food for birds and bats. Migrating fish carry nutrients between the sea and inland ecosystems. Freshwater mussels filter water, while microorganisms break down organic matter and recycle nutrients. When oxygen declines, the composition of the entire community can change. Sensitive animals disappear first, leaving behind species that tolerate polluted or stagnant conditions. Predators lose prey. Algal blooms may become more common. Certain microbes begin using chemical pathways that do not require oxygen, producing substances such as methane, nitrous oxide, hydrogen sulfide, or dissolved metals that can further damage water quality. The result can be a self-reinforcing cycle. Warming reduces oxygen. Low oxygen changes microbial activity. Those changes release nutrients from sediments or generate greenhouse gases. Additional nutrients promote more biological growth, and decomposition consumes even more oxygen. In extreme cases, this process creates a dead zone. The term does not mean that every organism disappears, but it describes an area where oxygen is too low to support most fish and other mobile animals. Some creatures escape if they can. Others become trapped, suffocate, or wash ashore during sudden fish kill events. These events often seem to happen without warning. Residents may wake to find thousands of dead fish floating at the surface, even though the river looked normal the previous day. Heat waves can trigger rapid declines because warm water holds less oxygen and animals consume more of it. A storm may mix oxygen-poor bottom water into the rest of a channel. Heavy rain can flush sewage, fertilizer, and decomposing material from the landscape into the river. Climate change may intensify several of these pressures simultaneously. Longer heat waves raise water temperatures. Drought reduces flow and concentrates pollution. Extreme rainfall carries larger pulses of nutrients and organic matter into rivers. Wildfires remove vegetation and fill waterways with ash and sediment. Even where average rainfall remains similar, more erratic weather can create rapid swings between flooding and stagnation. The researchers projected that global river oxygen could fall by another 4 to 5% by the end of this century if warming continues. The most damaging losses are expected in regions where water is already warm or heavily affected by pollution. A few additional percentage points could push ecosystems that are currently stressed beyond biological thresholds. This is also a human problem. Rivers supply drinking water, irrigation, food, electricity, transportation, and recreation. Low oxygen can produce unpleasant tastes and smells, increase treatment costs, and release pollutants from sediments. Fish deaths threaten local diets and fishing businesses. Communities that depend directly on rivers often have the fewest resources to replace those services when ecosystems fail. However, oxygen decline is not entirely irreversible. Unlike atmospheric carbon dioxide, which affects the entire planet, many causes of river deoxygenation can also be addressed locally. Reducing sewage discharge can improve water quality relatively quickly. Better fertilizer management can limit nutrient runoff. Restoring wetlands allows them to trap pollution before it reaches the main channel. Trees planted along riverbanks can shade the water, reducing summer temperatures while stabilizing soil. Removing unnecessary barriers can restore flow and allow fish to reach cooler habitats. Environmental releases from dams can keep downstream sections moving during dry periods. In heavily managed lakes and reservoirs, mechanical aeration is sometimes used to add oxygen directly, although this can be expensive and cannot replace healthy watershed management. The new research is important partly because many rivers lack long-term oxygen measurements. Traditional sensors must be installed, maintained, and calibrated, making global monitoring difficult. By combining limited field observations with satellite data and machine learning, scientists can now identify regions where oxygen loss may be occurring even when local instruments are scarce. But models are not replacements for direct measurement. They are tools for deciding where monitoring is urgently needed. A satellite cannot directly see oxygen dissolved beneath the water. Researchers must infer it from factors such as temperature, vegetation, flow, climate, land use, and water color. Local sensors and biological surveys are still necessary to confirm what is happening in individual rivers. Future monitoring may combine satellites, automated sensors, drones, field samples, and reports from fishermen or residents. Real-time oxygen measurements could help authorities warn of approaching fish kills, adjust dam releases, or investigate pollution before a crisis becomes visible. The most disturbing part of river deoxygenation is how quietly it can happen. A forest fire produces smoke. A flood covers roads. A drought exposes cracked soil. Oxygen loss may leave no obvious mark until animals begin dying. The river continues moving while its capacity to support life gradually weakens beneath the surface. Earth's rivers are not becoming lifeless everywhere, and the global decline does not mean that every waterway is approaching collapse. But the trend reveals a growing pressure that has received far less attention than warming, drought, or pollution considered separately. In reality, those threats are connected, and oxygen is where many of their effects finally meet. A river does not need to dry up to become uninhabitable. It can remain full of water while losing the invisible gas that keeps its ecosystem alive. The new global evidence suggests that this process is already underway across thousands of waterways. The rivers are still flowing, but in many places they are beginning to run out of breath.